the inflation versus deflation argument. The US dollar in the past 100 years has lost 99% of its purchasing power. Your purchasing power of the Bitcoin that you've earned means that your quality, your standard of living is increasing. So talk about like flipping society on its head.
Welcome to the Nashville Current Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Clay, and today we have two very special guests that I'm extremely excited to talk to. Coyn Mateer, hope I said it correctly, David Bailey, partners in UTXO Management. And David, you own BTC Inc., which owns Bitcoin Magazine and more. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having us.
And it's awesome to talk to you. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, David. I guess we met a couple of years ago when you were doing an event in Nashville.
Distributed health.
Yeah, distributed health. And it's really cool how it is in Nashville. A lot of people don't know this. Why don't you talk about what BTC does and then the management company as well?
Yeah, so we're one of the oldest continuously operated Bitcoin companies in the world. We own Bitcoin Magazine, which is the world's first information outlet on Bitcoin. We have the Bitcoin Conference, which is the world's largest Bitcoin event happening this year in Miami, God willing. And we also own a software business called Carrot. And, you know, over the past decade, you know, we've done venture investments. We've gotten all sorts of stuff that's kind of just filled our attic. But our core focus for our business is Bitcoin all day, every day, 365. And we're a very serious company. That's why I'm wearing my fake business hoodie today. You know, we keep it real. Keep it real.
There you go. Yeah, but Matt was saying, hey, can I wear this Bitcoin sweatshirt? I'm like, of course you can wear your Bitcoin sweatshirt. Like, let's do it. I don't even know what I'm going to wear quite yet. And I chose a purple shirt, but
well, the higher the Bitcoin price goes, the harder, you know, Bitcoiners get to flex. And so,
that's
you know,
right.
It's like if the price was 10,000, I'd be wearing a suit right now. We'd be talking about Bitcoin and banking, but you know, at $50,000 Bitcoin prices, it's the fake business hoodie. So there we go.
Yeah, you guys had the crypto winter kind of, right? So it was like just probably a year ago, you're like, 2 years ago was really kind of bad. You're like, oh, did we make the right decision? We made these investments. I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Made these investments. What are we doing? Oh my gosh, we got a family, and then boom, I'm a genius.
Yeah.
Look at Bitcoin.
David and I have had a couple of crypto winners together.
So, yeah.
We have some battle scars for sure. We have a lot of battle scars.
I mean, what's that like?
I mean, you know, we've been through, I guess this is our fourth bubble. So, you know, we've had 3 crypto winners before that. You always think you're prepared for crypto winter, but you never really are. And, you know, like in 2017, we made hundreds of millions of dollars. In 2018, we lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And so, you know, that can kind of like, you know, rattle you a little bit. We like to joke that, you know, in order to lose hundreds of millions, you have to make it first. And so,
sure,
you know, we can make it again. You know, you learn a lot of valuable lessons. I mean, one of them is really, if you're going to lose everything that you've invested, if you made a bunch of money, you're going to lose it. At least lose it on something that you really believe in, you have high conviction in, and that, you know, you can live the rest of your life and say, hey, it was worth taking the gamble that we took, and you know, we wouldn't have done it any way differently. And so that's why our company is now just completely focused on Bitcoin, because it's, you know, it's really mission driven. I mean, we see Bitcoin as freedom for humanity, you know, the ability for people around the world to transact with whoever they want, whenever they want, however they want, for whether it's legal, illegal, whether it's, you know, the government sanctioned or not, whatever. And so, you know, for us, it's like, that's a fight worth fighting. And so we've stayed focused on Bitcoin, and you know, the battle scars are useful, because already in this bubble, as we've gone to 50K, you know, we've started making good money again. And it's like we've avoided already many mistakes that, you know, last bubble even we would have been like, sign me up for. So, yeah, it's just part of the process. And I feel like, you know, I'm 30 years old. I feel like I'm 50 years old. So, right. You know, you age very quickly.
Yeah, when this whole thing was going down with the COVID stuff, when it first happened, I'm like, oh, I've been through this before. And it was, I mean, not the exact same thing, but back when the housing crisis happened, 2008. I mean, that was my learning in my 20s. It was, I've been through this before. Those are those battle scars. It took me a few years to recover. I maybe hung on to certain things too long, As it was going down, I'm calling my business partners. I'm like, hey guys, we've done this. We've all three been through this. Let's blah, 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 blah. And, I think that experience actually got us through. So you're exactly right. Those battle scars really help.
There's a meme I love whenever I think of crypto winter, and it's, soaring profits and massive one-time losses. And, I feel like that encapsulates it well.
With the traditional markets too, you only see an event like you see in March every, once a decade, once every other decade. With Bitcoin, it happens every 4 years. So, our fund and what we're focused on is learning from our past mistakes and investing through a 4-year market cycle that comes in a boom and bust adoption cycle with Bitcoin. That's really important for people to understand.
Yeah, so obviously there's not 100 years of data or whatever, but that has been the cycle since Bitcoin started. For people that are kind of just hearing about Bitcoin, which is a lot of people, they've maybe heard of it, but when did it start and what's that cycle been like?
Yeah, so Bitcoin started in 2009. I guess in terms of the cycle, and even the premise of our fund is called 210K. That stands for 210,000 blocks. The reason we picked that number is 210,000 blocks is the time between an event called the halving. And the halving is like a very special holiday in our industry. It happens once every 4 years. And basically Bitcoin has an issuance rate. So there's 21 million Bitcoins that will ever exist. But, on day zero, minute one of the network, there's basically 0 Bitcoins. And so the Bitcoins are mined every time a new block is found, roughly every 10 minutes. So when we started, it was 50 Bitcoins every block is like how many were issued into the market. After 210,000 blocks or 4 years, it was 25 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. Then 12 and a half Bitcoins every 10 minutes. It's now 6 and a quarter Bitcoins every 10 minutes. And it'll keep cutting in half until we reach this asymptotic level of 21 million. We'll never quite get to 21 million. So, our kind of thesis for our fund is that this halving event actually causes a supply shock in the market. So if I were to really oversimplify it, you could think of these 4-year cycles as in terms of like 1 year of relative price stability, 1 year of linear growth, 1 year of exponential growth, then one catastrophic year of massive declines, and then stability again. So that's the cycle. Well, when you're in this period of stability and you have basically the amount of fiat or U.S. dollars or what we consider quote real money flowing into the system every day, and the amount of money flowing out of the system are relatively balanced, and that's what creates the stability. And then overnight, this halving event occurs where all of a sudden half as many Bitcoins are being issued. Well, now there's a supply-demand imbalance, and so when you have a fixed amount of Bitcoins and you have the same amount of money coming in and a slower issuance rate, that's what causes this price to start going up linearly every single day. And so as that builds momentum, it's like a snowball going down a mountain, and the media starts talking about it. People start telling their friends about it. Hey, have you checked out Bitcoin? It's up 20% this year, or it's up 50% this year. And then that builds and builds and builds. And then it becomes a mania. And then the mania is obviously unsustainable, and it peaks out at some ridiculous price, pops, and then the cycle repeats. So it's, that was a lot of information there, but that's kind of the thesis of our fund is like, we want to take advantage of when these halving events occur, the boom part of the market that comes, and then be pretty aggressive about exiting the market for our investors when we think crypto winter is here.
And what's the guess as far as like, where are we at in the cycle? Obviously it's booming. How far into the boom are we?
No one can tell you exactly what's going to happen. I mean, we're watching history play out in front of us, so to speak. But I think if you talk to kind of the Bitcoin insiders and people who've been around a long time, the goal for this market is for us to kind of match the market cap of gold, which would be roughly $400,000 a Bitcoin. So that's about 10x from here. Most people think we'll get to that point by the end of the year. So, I mean, this is going to be just a exponential curve. And then you discount 75, 80% from there. So maybe we go from 400,000 down to 100,000 over the course of a year, which is going to be really brutal for people.
I mean,
but
just getting to 100,000 though, that sounds awesome.
oh yeah, I mean that could happen fast. I mean, it was only about 3 months ago when we were talking to people and they're like, you think we could get to 40,000? That would be incredible.
And what did you tell people then?
Yes. I think 100% we'll get to 40,000. And less than 90 days later, here we are.
So this is interesting though, because what you're saying is you understand the cycle of Bitcoin based off of your specialized knowledge, and this is your life studying this stuff, right? How has it played out? Like from your predictions, is this what you thought exactly would happen?
We're both awful traders. We're not good short-term callers of Bitcoin, but we're incredibly good at understanding where we're at from a macro cycle perspective. And where we're at right now is right in line with where we thought that we'd be this year.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I mean, we're very on the record publicly about kind of what we thought would happen with the price. I think we've been.
I will say, David talked about the 4-year Bitcoin cycles. It's like 3 out of the 4 years, our job is really uncool, and a lot of people look at us with a lot of skepticism. And then this is the year where we get invited on awesome podcasts like this. Talk about Bitcoin.
No, that's
So I think we have a really good track record, but there's a term that we use in the industry. It's called scamming yourself, and you always have to be careful about scamming yourself, because that's when you trick yourself into saying, maybe this time is different than the other times. Maybe this time, the price isn't going to crash as badly, or maybe this time it's different and it's this other crypto that really is the next Bitcoin, and that's where you really get wrecked on investments. And so I think our Bitcoin track record has been, I'm not going to say impeccable, but pretty solid. But we've still made lots of mistakes along the way. There's another saying in Bitcoin. It's like your Bitcoin OG-ness is not determined by how many Bitcoins you have. It's based on how many Bitcoins you've lost. And so by that standard, we're very Bitcoin OG.
that's good. Talking about like making mistakes. So you focus on Bitcoin because the other products, volatile. Bitcoin, I'm guessing, in your point of view, it's better to just focus on this because it's something that you could wrap your brain around and understand the cycles, and you're obviously very, very knowledgeable. That said, I know you know a lot about other cryptos. Like, what's your experience with something like Ethereum, and what's your thoughts on it?
Well, so we were talking briefly before. I'm not the best person to ask about Ethereum because I'm a little embittered. At Bitcoin Magazine, one of the kind of earliest employees at Bitcoin Magazine was Vitalik Buterin, the creator of Ethereum. All the founders of our Ethereum are close friends, and we could have gotten involved at 15 cents and at 30 cents and at $1, and we thought we were too smart. And, it's kind of like, that will never work, and we don't want anything to do with it. And, just another lesson that we don't know everything. But, I think, for us, it's like, when you see how the sausage is made, sometimes it's tough to eat the sausage, and there's a lot of bullshit in crypto. And I think we really got fed up in trying to parse what's bullshit and what's not. Mm-hmm. And my experience has been that for most cryptos, even what people consider the top 20 cryptos, let's say, they have marketing departments, they put out press releases. If you just do a cursory, look at the project, it looks really impressive on the outside, even more impressive than Bitcoin. But when you really dive deep, and you see what's happening behind the scenes, it's just filled with warts. Yeah. So Bitcoin's the opposite. It's like when you look at Bitcoin on the surface, it looks like a piece of shit. And then it's only when you dive into the dynamics and what's happening that the inner beauty of Bitcoin really shines through. And there is no marketing department. There are no press releases. There are no employees. Like, it is a truly decentralized technology that, it never had to raise money from a venture capitalist. It never had to, it doesn't care about if you're a billionaire banker or if you're a 17-year-old taco plebe, buying marijuana off the dark web. Like, it treats everyone the same. And so, for our perspective, it's like, okay, we don't want to, when it gets back to what are we going to lose, like, what's worth losing all of our money over? It's like, we want to lose our money over something that we truly believe is the real deal, not, buying into someone's bullshit press releases and pushing a project that, it's questionable how it's going to play out.
Well, it reminds me of like, right, a lot of people think of Bitcoin as completely speculative. It sounds like to you, Bitcoin's not speculative. Is that correct?
No, it's not. It's not speculative at all.
Okay.
I mean,
It's a collectible trying to become a store of value, and it's not a good medium of exchange necessarily right now.
no, and I will say,
And it's evolving and growing over time. Every aspect of Bitcoin, the network affects people. People come in the ecosystem. Companies developing on top of Bitcoin. The liquidity of Bitcoin doubles about every single year. The custody providers, the accounting solutions, all these things are growing every year.
So maybe I should correct. I said it's not speculative at all. We're very radicalized. We've been in this a long time. I have about 95% of my net worth in Bitcoin. I live inside of Bitcoin basically at this point.
Oh no! The reason I ask, I understand you're not saying for everybody it's not speculative. For you, it's not speculative.
Correct.
And that's impressive to me because I trust you just from understanding, but hearing it, I'm like, you truly believe, like, hey, this isn't speculative. This is like,
It's like math. It's like
the,
arithmetic.
It's the only crypto out there that has been time tested for 10 years.
Well, and not even just crypto. It's like, what seems speculative to me is the US dollar. What seems speculative to me is politician controlled money. Like people tell me it's like, oh, I have a diversified portfolio. It's like, no, you don't. You're 100% exposed to US dollars.
dollar.
I don't know how you sleep at night. Would you trust a politician with your checking account? Okay, you're going to trust a politician to pick someone you don't even know who they are necessarily to determine monetary policy for the world. Are you kidding me? So I think that there are some obvious truths sitting out there that people are blind to because they've never known an alternative. But once you sit inside of Bitcoin long enough, you start looking at the system that was there before and you're like, holy crap, that was the biggest scam I could possibly imagine.
yeah, it's all this. It's not backed by anything.
It's not backed by anything. And what do we use the money for? To finance wars overseas, to finance the prison industrial complex, to finance corporate bailouts for big banks so they can go, speculate on shorting GameStop. I mean, the whole game of government is to placate the people so that they can maintain control over the printing press, because the printing press is the ultimate power. The ability to mint money out of thin air. You're God.
That's it.
And so, that's everything else is like, yeah, they'll throw some scraps to people and $300 checks or, some, public housing just so that they won't revolt, so that they can keep running the printing press for longer. So I'm radicalized a little bit, so I hope I'm not.
That's not radical. It's crazy when what you're saying to me is, I shouldn't say common sense, but it's very logical. But people look at it as radical. Ron Paul said, "Truth is treason in the empire of lies."
Exactly.
And that is where we're at. When telling the truth is a treasonous act. I work in healthcare in another country. We were launching in the U.S. And I don't even know exactly where I'm at with the patent system and those things. When I look at medications that I know can help people, but because of a patent, other people can't use it, and or if it's off patent, there's no money in it, so there's no clinical trials that go into it. And if I really speak out, the power of the government comes down on me. It's unbelievable when you really look behind the curtain of this system that we know is corrupt. We know it's corrupt. What the politicians have been doing for all these years, what the prison industrial complex has been doing for all these years, what the military industrial complex has been doing, it's beyond corrupt. And if you at all point out, shine a light on what's really going on, we're considered radicalized. That's radical to me. It's the opposite. We're telling the truth as we see it. And now we're not even really allowed to tell the truth because you have a whole canceling culture that's going on.
I mean, that's exactly. And the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is it can't be canceled. It can't be deplatformed. You can't lose your Bitcoin account one day. To me, when you kind of zoom out far enough, Bitcoin is math-based money. It is basically making the statement that humans are not responsible enough to control the financial wherewithal of all other people. And so just like we build airplanes based on math because, math is stable, Bitcoin as math-based money will be one day stable as it matures, as it grows. And when people build businesses on top of that, they'll be much more foundationally secure, in my opinion, because they won't be exposed to the changing winds of monetary policy, of fiscal policy, of regulators and at the SEC determining who winners and losers are. Like it's a permissionless wild west system that people are forced to learn how to take care of themselves within, for better and worse.
Yeah, for better and worse. It's the idea of letting people actually decide. Be personally responsible for your own life.
Yep.
And people say that's very dangerous. And sure, it's dangerous, but guess what? Life is dangerous, right? This is what we're walking. Every time we get in the car, we're taking a chance. The idea that the government needs to protect us from ourselves, to me, is the opposite of freedom.
100%. That's so. Again, getting back to why Bitcoin. It's like, this is why Bitcoin. Like this is the root of power for all of the issues in society that are maybe caused by unfair rules or corruption or government, et cetera. The root of their power is the money system. And if you can disrupt the money system and replace it with something that they can't control, that they can't print more of, then you force them to behave responsibly. You force them to live within a restrained reality. And so solving the money system is much bigger than just solving some obscure financial tool. It's actually about solving the military-industrial complex. If people had to pay for the war in Iraq and they had to mail in, their $70,000 check to pay for that, there would be no wars. I haven't met one person who would be like,
here's my work.
Yeah, let me write my $100,000 check for this.
Yeah,
it's only because no one ever sees the money, sure. and they make this decision kind of for you. So, I mean, this is really, I think, a broader movement that if humanity is in a form of modern serfdom, and if we want to escape from that and have a new golden age for humanity, then we have to free people from the monetary system that they were born into. And in America, for better or worse, is, it's the best system that's out there. Can you imagine being born in Venezuela or in Turkey or in Lebanon, where literally, in 3 month period, you might lose 75% of your savings by just holding the local currency. And, that, and, people in Venezuela, they were just born into this.
Right.
There's 7.5 billion people in the world. 2.5 billion of them don't have access to a bank account, even if they wanted one. And they all live in corrupt countries, in countries much worse than the United States. And now they have an option where anyone with a smartphone and connection to internet can opt into a banking system where their value will increase over time, or they can stay where they're at without a bank account. And there's now more people with a smartphone with internet connection than have running water in their household in the world.
Wow.
I mean, in 30 years, more people have gotten cell phones and internet access than what banking has been able to do in 400 years. And so, when you want to talk about the positive side of this, it's like how many Jack Ma's and, genius inventors are living in a rural village in some country where they don't have access to the basic tools they need to be able to go and create value. And so they are farming some rice field when, if they just had access to information, access to financial tools, they'd be able to go build a $1 billion business that transforms people's lives. And that's like the vast majority of the world lacks those basic tools. I mean, there's only 300 million people in America. I mean, go look at the developing world. There's 1 billion people on the planet that earn less than $1 a day. How does that make sense?
It makes absolutely no sense. And, it's interesting. So from a global perspective, America is going to have to start taking it serious, because what China is doing right now, creating their own digital currency. I don't know how far you've gotten in this, but from my understanding, they're going to be going to different countries and giving people loans with this digital currency and then accept payment in that digital currency. And so they're going to be spreading that digital currency throughout the world and get people reliant on it. And it's interesting to me on a number of levels, but I hope enlightened people realize what's going on in general with what governments can do with monetary systems to manipulate people, especially those that might not be that educated in what's going on to them. Like, for instance, right now with the stimulus and the bailout, they're mailing these checks, well, small checks, albeit, but then you've got the PPP and you've got all this money pumping into the system. People are taking this money thinking, oh, we don't really have to pay this back.
How much of the money supply in the U.S. do you think M2 money supply was printed this past year, in the past 12 months?
No clue.
40%.
There you go. 40%. So you think about what we're doing here, but then take that idea to digital currency, China doing that in different parts of the world, and getting really ahead of us as a United States. And if the politicians and the country, let's just not say the politician, if the country doesn't wake up to what could happen, we're going to be destroyed. And my point to it is we could fix that with the 1 billion people that you're talking about that make that income. If we were able to actually take care of people the way that we should, doing the right thing, not letting greed per se run us, I think we could solve those problems. And it might be the end of us if we don't do something about it.
Well, on the government issuing their own digital currency, I think that's going to be a trend that's going to pick up. We're pretty familiar with the Chinese project. It's coming to market now. It's been under development for years. The United States is working on something similar. The Canadian government, the EU. I mean, basically every government's wanting it. If people are worried about getting deplatformed off of Twitter, I can't imagine how exciting it's going to be deplatformed out of your cash also, so that you literally just have nothing when they decide they want to cancel you.
Yes.
But I think it's a little bit of hubris from the government's perspective that they don't quite understand the value that Bitcoin brings to the table, or maybe they do understand it, but they're just ignoring it. The reason that Bitcoin is taking off is not because it's digital. Like, it actually isn't super scalable yet. It takes 10 minutes to confirm a transaction. Sometimes you pay $5 transaction fees. Like, it's not some Apple Pay is better than Bitcoin if you're looking for something to go out to the store and shop with and buy something with. The reason people want Bitcoin is because it's not controlled by the politicians. Mm-hmm. Because it's not something that just gets inflated ad infinity and it appreciates in value. So if I take, this, scammy US dollar and I digitize it, now I just have a scammy digital US dollar. And so, it's not like that they're giving up control of the printing press when they move to a digital dollar standard or a digital RMB. If anything, they're just putting it on more steroids. And so I think that if they successfully onboard a lot of users into the digital economy, like the most friction that exists from getting a new person into Bitcoin is from them going to, I have money in my bank account, to I'm connecting my bank account to a Bitcoin exchange, to I'm buying Bitcoin, and now I'm a Bitcoin user. Like, that's the process. Once you're in Bitcoin, to go from a digital currency to another digital currency, it takes 1 second. I mean, it's like a text message and you're there. Sure. So if the governments around the world want to onboard all the users in the world from, paper analog money to the digital form of that money, awesome, because they just took the number one hurdle for getting people into Bitcoin. And now it's one click away from people from being able to go from their digital dollars into Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So I think it's actually a hugely bullish thing for Bitcoin. And I don't think that these currencies can outcompete Bitcoin because at the end of the day, they're not fundamentally removing the political nature of their money from the money. Mm-hmm. And also, I think there's a game theoretical element to this as well, where you think the United States is going to be comfortable with the Chinese RMB being the currency of America? No, they're going to make a law that says you have to use the digital US dollar in America. And then every country around the world is going to make a similar law that you have to use their digital currency for their country. And then we're right back to the world that we live in right now, where every country has its own currency and it has its own rules and, yada, yada.
Sure. I guess to the point of it, though, what I was saying with China. So if they're loaning this money, this digital currency, kind of out of thin air, and we're not doing the same thing in these areas, I feel like there's a chance that we can get really far behind.
If Bitcoin didn't exist, 100%, this would be a death blow to the U.S. dollar. Because a non-state form of money exists, I think all of these projects are relatively doomed to failure.
Okay.
But again, I've already, laid out in the beginning, we missed Ethereum. We're not the smartest people in the world, so I could be proven wrong. But, gold has been around for 10,000 years, and it's because it has lasting power. It's non-state. No one controls it. No one changes the rules of it. If it's in your bank, it doesn't just disappear one night because someone wrote a law saying it has to be, it's illegal. So I think Bitcoin is digital gold, and it's playing a really long game. And I think that, over time, it's going to outcompete everything. And once it gets a big enough network effect, no one's going to want to use the other currencies. Like, why am I going to use your scammy, local currency, Venezuela, when every person in your country accepts Bitcoin and I can just use Bitcoin and I don't have to interact with you at all?
Gold, 10,000 years. The oldest fiat currency, British pound, 350 years. It's not the digital aspect of, taking the US dollar and making it into a digital currency. It's the inflationary fight with people controlling money and people that can't be trusted to spend money wisely or come up with a proper monetary policy versus a deflationary nature, Bitcoin, controlled by math with ultimate scarcity where the issuance schedule is set for the next 150 years. No one can change it.
I think that's such an important point, like the inflation versus deflation argument. The US dollar in the past 100 years has lost 99% of its purchasing power. So, you read about these grandmas that took their life savings and they bought a US Treasury with it, and it was like $100. And it's like, now you spend $100 in a dinner. And it's just kind of like, that's somebody worked 20 years to save up $100, and now it's $100 can be spent in a night. Whereas, with Bitcoin, because it's deflationary, your purchasing power should grow every year. So, if you think about consumer electronics, there's a very deflationary market sector. TVs every year get bigger, better, cheaper. It used to be that you had those big fat TVs, and you had to get a mortgage basically to get one into your house, and they were like 3 feet deep or whatever. And now you go into Walmart, and for next to nothing, you can get a 50-inch flat screen 4K TV. All right, that's the market forces and technology making things cheaper for the world. Bitcoin and its deflationary effects means that, in theory, if your salary isn't growing, but Bitcoin's value is growing, then your purchasing power of the Bitcoin that you've earned means that your quality, your standard of living is increasing. So talk about like flipping society on its head. If like all you had to do to get ahead in life was just like not have your salary go down and to save a little bit of money, and those two things is all you needed for financial independence, rather than, you need to invest in the right hedge funds, or you need to go,
Dude, that's a really brilliant way that you guys are putting this, and I'm having some aha moments too. So thank you. They have the universal income that they're talking about doing right now, and I think what you're saying is, it's inflation versus deflation. If you save money, that money should grow, and if you have a steady...
and right now the way that the U.S. dollar is set up, you are 100% likely to lose your purchasing power over time because we're printing the money. It's not backed by anything.
It's baked into the system. That's the goal, is to actually take away your purchasing power and transfer it to them.
Talk about that too, because, when did we start? I think it was 71, 70. Nixon says we're finally Keynes now, basically. But talk about, I guess, the difference between the Keynesian idea and the Austrian idea. I don't know if you follow. I mean,
Yeah. No, I mean, so I'm an Austrian. You
Okay.
mentioned Ron Paul earlier. Ron Paul is one of the people that I discovered Bitcoin through, and some of the ideas that, he's a hero of mine. But yeah, I mean, there is a kind of these two competing schools of thought in economics, Austrian versus Keynesian, and Austrian is radical free market capitalism, no government intervention. And they basically say to describe the market and economics is just to observe the state of nature of how people interact. That's all they're trying to do. Keynesian economics is where you start to try to engineer the interactions of people in order to achieve certain outcomes. And, without drilling too deeply into that, you can actually really even go back further. And there's a man named Richard Cantillon, who coined a term called the Cantillon effect, but he was an English economist, but he lived in France in the 1600s. He was the kind of behind the scenes puppet master of one of the kings of France and controlled the monetary system there. And he was behind a company called the Mississippi Company, which was like the East India Trading Company. I mean, you've heard of that before. It was one of the big kind of government-owned enterprises colonizing America at the time and setting up trade colonies and trading furs. And it was a Ponzi scheme. And he kept this journal where he wrote down the schemes. And he talked about the scheme of creating your own currency, creating inflation by printing up extra currency, using that currency to pay for whatever the things are that you wanted, and how that permeates throughout an economy and society, and who ends up actually bearing the cost at the end of the day. And he writes all of this in the most transparent and disgusting description you can possibly imagine. And he lays out the scam that is central banking as we know it today. Mm-hmm. He's kind of the creator of the scam. And, he became fabulously wealthy, but, he would come up with calculations like, what's the minimum amount of money you need to pay someone so that they don't revolt, but you're paying them the least amount possible. So like, what's the bare minimum needed to keep a revolution from happening and to basically treat people as serfs? And so, guys, brilliant in a like Dexter type way,
Sure.
Sick guy. So he lays out the scam. The book was actually banned for over 100 years because it was not a book that they wanted people to read and consume that information. But that's what kind of, he's like the grandfather of Keynesian economics from that standpoint. And baked into the Keynesian economics idea is that, governments are better at spending money than individual people are. And it gets back to, who knows better? Do people know better for themselves, or do you know better for other people? To your point earlier about protecting people from themselves, protecting is a generous way to put it, but it's all about, are people in control of their own destinies, or do we want to be in control of their destinies for them? And so I don't know if I answered your question about the Keynesian economics, but
and you, with what you're saying, it's either do you want to empower people or disempower people, and that's what I guess frustrates me with where we're at with society. It's like, do you want to empower people to better themselves, to go for their goals, to try things, or do you want to say, oh no, you're not smart enough? It's kind of like the SEC with the what's the word? Accredited investor. Sorry. Okay, so I'm a bootstrap entrepreneur. I mean, I grew up in Nashville, born and raised here. And my martial arts school that I built was one of the largest mixed martial arts schools in the United States, had a clothing line called Gameness, largest supplier of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts uniforms in the world, sold those. Coming from, bootstrapping this stuff, lost big in the market crash in 2008. And I look at, my first experience raising money was for United Cancer Centers. And this is my ignorance. I didn't know. And all of a sudden, like, accredited investor, someone has to make $200,000 a year for a couple years, or at least $1 million net worth to invest in our project? Like, what about all my friends that are going to want to be a part of it, be a part of an idea, as Victor Hugo, an idea whose time has come. This is it. Like, what do you mean? Because that's where was getting the energy from. That's where we're getting the energy. Our friend network is so powerful. They believe in us. A lot of them aren't millionaires. They're just regular people. Want to throw in JP want to throw in $5,000. Get friends. That's what it is. But because we have these regulations, the average person can't invest. They can't see something that they believe in and make a decision for themselves to go for it and support their friend who they believe in, knowing their friend isn't promising them, a return. But,
Well, it's because you could lose your money, but it's okay if you put your money in a pension fund where there's fees and the hedge fund manager that manages your pension fund loses your money. That's okay. That's acceptable risk, but they got to make sure that they get their rake along the way.
The thing about these regulations, I can't believe that the average person can't invest in projects that they believe in. You think about what just happened with GameStop, and I don't think most people realize kind of the true battle of that. Whether you agree with what they were doing or not, the point is, we should have the rights as individuals to make or lose our investment. And you know what? We're never people don't get ahead by not taking chances. You got to take a little risk, educated risk. And if you lose, stand personally responsible and go for it again. And that's empowering, because as you're talking about, you've been through the crypto winners. I've been through winners. We've had lots of struggles as entrepreneurs, and you learn from those mistakes. You have your scars and you move forward, and you're empowered, and you're like, you know what? I got this. 2020 was a hell of a year for me. Humbling year for me. Kind of like one of those crypto winners where you might doubt yourself and balancing, trying to figure out what's going to happen. Like, oh my God, it's tough. But you know what? I'm like,
the struggle shapes you.
Yeah, we're going to get through this. Failure isn't really an option. We're going to make it no matter what. I don't know exactly what it looks like. I might have to sell some things. It's okay. We're going to get through this. But that's what makes you grow. And I feel like, to your point, the design of this whole system is to hold people back. It's to not allow them to actually shine.
So there's one thing to that point too, on the Cantillon effect I was mentioning earlier. When you create money out of thin air, the beneficiaries of that activity are the people who touch the money first, and the people who carry the cost of that printed money are the people who touch the money last. So the closer you are to the printing press, the closer you are to the institutions of power, you're the beneficiary. And it's the person furthest down the line, the most disenfranchised person, who carries the cost at the end of the day. They're the ones who have their food prices go up or their rent go up or whatever. So to your point about who are these rules really designed to help? They're designed to protect the powerful against the people. That's who the rules are written for. That's who they're funded by. So, it's perverse. And, in the GameStop story, I think that they're I can see both sides of the argument for the short sellers and stuff. It's a free market. People want to short stuff. They should be able to, yada, yada. But I think the bigger issue is that, should the SEC or should Robinhood or should the government be in the business of picking winners and losers? It's supposed to be a free market where we can compete head to head, and one side wins, one side loses.
But is it a free market?
But it's not.
I should say, is it even supposed to be, though?
No, it's a fake market.
Okay.
And that's why I'm wearing my fake business hoodie. We have fake news, fake money, fake markets. We live in a simulation created for us so that we will plod along and show up at our 9-to-5 jobs and ring the cash registers for Walmart and pay our corporate overlords, make sure we get the newest Apple iPhone that's shipped. That's...
Well, people say, well, we're in a democracy, or this is capitalism. I had a friend actually send me a a message on Instagram, like, I forget the word he used, but basically like, hyper-capitalism or something, ultra-capitalism. And I didn't know exactly what that term meant. Googled it, and there's a couple things, but I'm like, well, just so, and he was actually agreeing with something I was saying, but he was also thinking that what I was saying was caused by this ultra capitalism. And I say, hey, just so this is not capitalism. This is cronyism. This is corporatism.
Exactly.
Like, let's make sure, because, I almost want to change the terminology of capitalism. I almost don't want to be associated with it because it's not what they say it is. You have cronyism. This is not capitalism. This is not a free market. This is the opposite. And then the debates that we have with people that don't really understand the market or what's happening, they're thinking, it's regulate. Oh, we need more regulations. Like, no, we don't need more regulation. We need less regulations. Oh, we need more laws that tell people what to do. We need more, and they don't know. And the politicians are feeding, especially the poor people, this BS. Oh, hey, get your check here. Oh, as their prices are raising, as their milk raises, their groceries raise, all these things are more expensive for them. They're the ones getting taxed. That's the ultimate tax. The inflation's the ultimate tax. And they don't even see what's going on.
100%. 100%. And I don't see, it's easy to get caught up in the despair of all of this. Bitcoin is the antidote. And like that's what makes this incredibly powerful. That's why this is it's
a peaceful antidote that anyone in the world can opt into. It's a
choice.
You have a choice.
How do we get then? Because I think if we're trying to make the biggest difference, we need to help the people that need the financial help the most. Mm-hmm. How do we get Bitcoin to the masses?
So, well, it's a great question. We have a business that we started this year called Carrot. That is designed, it's like, you go to earncarrot.com, but it's micro tasks that people can do in order to earn their first Satoshis. So like, hey, make a video on this or upload an article or, follow this on Twitter or yada, yada, just little tasks that people can do. And it's just a proof of concept that we're trying to flesh out. But I mean, when you have 1 billion people on the planet earning less than $1 a day, the benchmark is so low to be able to replace their income. It's like,
you're not going to buy into the system. You can earn into the system using your time.
If you had $100, you could replace 100 people's salaries, and you could have 100 people online working for you right now. What's the value that 100 people can create online? I mean, I could give someone a link for a concert that's happening and say, hey, just spam this link all over the internet. And at $1 a day, the return on investment is incredible. As long as they have access to the internet, as long as they have, the ability to speak a common language as you, which most of the planet speaks English, but it's the friction of people being able to collaborate online has to come down. But as it comes down, the economic opportunity that people can discover online grows. Mm-hmm. And so Bitcoin is the equalizer. And, if you look at our society that we have today, America, we're the people exploiting our position in society. It's the developing world that is the getting screwed over. And so when we equalize the playing field, who's going to benefit the most are the people who have been being screwed over the most. Mm-hmm. Like they're finally getting to at least play on equal footing. So I think we have to find ways for people to earn money online. We have to find ways to take the internet to the next level. It can't just be centralized social media sites. It's got to be really enabling people to create value. And I think Patreon, Shopify, these tools that we've seen that have enabled the individual creator, like those ideas need to be put on steroids and taken to the next level for the world.
Well, I was thinking with all the stimulus that's been going on, I guess I don't even know what level we're at now. If they're going to just print the money, and you really want to help the poor, what if they gave them Bitcoin instead?
They would be up somewhere between 400 and 700% since the stimulus check came.
Yeah, that's. I mean, just imagine.
There's a Twitter handle that's what's your stimulus?
I can't remember what's that right now.
What's your stimulus check worth in Bitcoin? Yeah. And so they just track the price of what it would have been worth if you dumped it in Bitcoin.
There are at least 3 credit cards coming out this year that it's just an idea. Opt into it. Spend on the normal Visa network and get Bitcoin back as cash rewards versus credit card points, and watch those grow over time. I think that's an incredible, simple concept for people to opt into the system.
Like I'm a diehard capitalist. I think socialism has done a lot of harm to the world. But, you know, the one place I sympathize is that, you know, if it's all just spin and bullshit, you know, and if we're going to have unlimited, if we're going to have UBI for big business, and UBI for corporations, why not have UBI for the normal, for everyday people? Like if it's all just spin and bullshit, let's make some spin in our direction. But the thing is that's a road to nowhere. Like,
And when you say UBI is universal basic income.
Universal basic income. So it's like big business already has universal basic income, basically. You know, it's called 0% interest rates. I don't know how many billions that you guys can issue via loans right now, but you know, if you're a big business, you just go get however much money you need and you pay nothing for it. We'll probably have negative interest rates soon where we pay them to take money. How great is that?
What a scam. What a scam.
There's $17 trillion of it already outstanding.
It's just such a scam. But to the point of the universal basic income for the poor people, I've been grappling with it too, because I'm like, if we know the system is a scam, ultimately, the monetary system is a scam, then we might as well help as many people as we can. It'd be interesting, though, to like speak some logic to them. Okay, hey, if you're going to do this universal basic income, why don't you put some of your money into something with real value? Mm-hmm. You know, like Bitcoin, like, you know, different projects like that.
It's happening. Bitcoin needs time to mature. It's an early technology. There's it has a lot of kind of user experience elements that have to be hammered out. It needs to be able to scale up to do more transactions. It needs more businesses and solutions built on top of it, but it's happening. The second biggest market for Bitcoin in the world right now is China. All right. Third biggest Bitcoin market in the world right now is Nigeria.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty new development. You know, we throw up on Carrot a task. Hey, you know, send us a YouTube video saying what Bitcoin means to you in one word. You know, we'll get 3/4 of our submissions from developing nations. Wow. So, you know, it's already occurring. And then as people in those communities have a positive experience with Bitcoin and they kind of tread their path for their local community. Like, you know, I know how to get a Bitcoin wallet. I know how to, you know, use Bitcoin to survive. They evangelize that to their friends. And so Bitcoin truly grows socially. It's truly a viral form of money. Money in its essence is a social institution. And so I think that, you know, it's going to happen naturally. But the more things that we can do to facilitate that, the better. You know, that 100% better.
What do you think about, you know, the Miami mayor talking about putting Bitcoin on his balance sheet? And
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, different cities doing that. What's your thoughts?
Let's do it. I mean, you know, it's funny. We were having a conversation actually earlier today with Tesla announcing that they put $1.5 billion on their balance sheet. And as more and more corporations put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and these companies are, you know, on the S&P 100 or, you know, the Dow Jones, people's pension funds, et cetera, own equity in these companies. So indirectly, people are actually getting exposure to Bitcoin. So I think that like any institution in which there's a lot of stakeholders in that institution and they care deeply about that institution, getting that institution to embrace Bitcoin and get financial exposure to Bitcoin is a very positive thing. And I think that there is over the next 100 years, if Bitcoin reaches its potential, you know, one Bitcoin could grow thousands of times, tens of thousands of times in value from what it is today, which sounds crazy, but that's how big of a market it's disrupting. Sure. And so you can imagine, you know, something you care deeply about, if it had 1% of its balance sheet exposed to Bitcoin over the next 100 years, that 1% could grow into many, many, many times the funding of the entire organization. And so the risk-reward trade-off is unbelievable. I mean,
you're talking about an asset that's been around for 11 years, 9 of the last 11 years, best performing asset in the world, hands down. 9 of 11. The other 2 is the worst performing asset. So that's what you have to be prepared for if you get into this space. What we usually recommend to people is don't put your entire net worth into Bitcoin right away. Put a little bit in or earn some to educate yourself about it, but to not put 1% of your portfolio, as the mayor of Miami or the mayor of Nashville, is really an irresponsible decision at this point. 9 out of the last 11 years, best performing asset in the world compared to anything every year. Completely non-correlated with everything else in your portfolio.
Well, just think about like, even 1% in Nashville, what that would do if they would have done it 10 years ago. My God, we'd be the richest city in the world.
Totally.
It'd be completely different. Think if they did it 5 years ago. Think if they did it this year. And, it's interesting as we talk about fixing the roads in Nashville, that they're talking about buses that we were using in the 1950s. And I just want to say, hey, what world are we living in? Do we want to build a city of the past, or do we want to build a city of the future? And I don't see a lot of vision coming out of our politicians, unfortunately. And so, what we're talking about is so disruptive. Nobody's done it yet. We could be the first city. Nashville could be the first city. Miami's probably going to beat us to it. Nashville could be the first city. It could be a city of the future. Like seeing what's going to happen in the future. And what is the real risk? 1%? I mean, that 1% could be so astronomical.
Yeah, I mean, the war in Iraq was 15%. So it's like, we just tone the war in Iraq down 10%, we could do it.
Right. Exactly.
And if you are the mayor or running for mayor, how many votes does it take in order to become the mayor of Nashville? How many votes could the president have swung this year to get the U.S. involved in Bitcoin if he were to do it?
Well, that's the hive mind of Bitcoin. So if there's enough people in Nashville that have Bitcoin, we talked about this briefly before the podcast too, but there's 30,000 votes to win mayor. So if we could get 30, 40,000 Bitcoin holders in Nashville, and then we just had, somebody was like, hey, we're going to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet if you vote for me.
Right.
There you go. The hive mind of it will kick in, and we can make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's important because obviously, as you say, you're kind of radicalized in Bitcoin. That's your life. This is you know more about it than you probably forgot more than you've whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you feel like that it's going to do something. You feel like you do see the future based on your incredible experience.
Long term. It's not a 1-year game. Like we're talking about these 4-year cycles. We're talking about this being the exponential year of growth in price for Bitcoin. But Bitcoin it's a 50-year game. It's a 100-year game.
Yeah. So how do you with people though? So let's say this happens. December crashes. People have lost their money, and then or some people have lost money or lost U.S. dollar. Then you're going to have all the people complaining about, oh my gosh, you see. But how do you see weathering that if you're a politician wanting to get in it?
Well, that's a tough question. So first off, we've basically been buying Bitcoin since $10 a Bitcoin. So, we've seen 5,000x growth in the price of Bitcoin. To see the transformation that happened over the past decade up close and personal, this is a snowball going down a mountain. Like I don't feel like I have a vision of the future when I see a snowball halfway down a mountain and I'm like, yo, it's going to make it to the bottom of the mountain. It to me, it's just like, that's an inevitability. So that's how I see and feel about Bitcoin. It's why I have almost my entire net worth into Bitcoin when, people are like, why don't you sell and cash out? And it's like, cash out into what? I mean, what do you mean cash out? So, but in terms of how to weather the volatility, we tell people to dollar cost average in. So first off, don't put all your money into Bitcoin at one time. It's a really long time horizon. It's very volatile. So if you want to invest $1,000 into Bitcoin, it's better to say, okay, I'm going to put in $25 a week, just set up an auto buy on one of these exchanges and just buy $25 worth a week. And it's like, maybe you're leaving gains on the table. Maybe also the price goes down and you end up saving yourself money. So that's one way to kind of take some of the volatility out of it for people. I also think that to the point earlier about, battle scars and why struggle is good. I don't think we want to take away those negative elements of the experience for people because it helps people understand the money system that they're using. And probably a reaction I get from people is like, oh, well, people don't really want to understand that. That's part of the problem, is that people don't want to take responsibility for it. And so, I've met tons of people who have bought into Bitcoin, price goes up, price goes down. They end up selling once they're underwater on their money, very bitter about it. They're like, Bitcoin, that's a scam. It's going to zero. Then price stabilizes, a year, 2 years go by. Then they see something in the news. They look back, oh, Bitcoin's 30% higher than it was when I sold it. And then they're like kind of watching, but like now they're aware.
It's four times.
And it challenges them to dig deeper. It's like, what did I miss here? And then that intellectual process, now when they buy back into Bitcoin, they're like, oh, okay. Like I get what I missed last time. I kind of get what I did wrong last time. So I'm going to approach it in this more, conservative or this approach that works better for how I am as an individual. So, I think that's all part of the process. And, and I think that this boom bust cycle will probably exist until, the majority of the planet is using Bitcoin. I think that that's part of the adoption cycle process. It's like an algae bloom. It blooms, it overexpands, and it contracts back down. So
yeah, and you said that you're an Austrian, so that's what it's all about, is the cycles, right? So you're identifying the Bitcoin cycle, correct?
Yep. And what's so cool about Bitcoin is, we have these crypto winter 75% crashes, and we don't have any Federal Reserve that steps in to have to bail us out. And guess what? We're back. We come back fast. Like, that's the business cycle. The market mechanism is very effective at wiping out the bad businesses, getting those people to restart new ideas. The businesses that are great ideas, that create a lot of value, they survive through. It's a healthy natural cycle. It's almost like a fire. You need to clear out the brush from a forest every so often with fires in order to keep there from being like a huge, massive forest fire. So these cycles are short. They're brutal, but they're short, and you get past them. It's not like the cycles that we have in today's world where it's 10, 15 years later, a quarter of your life has gone by, and you're back to where you were. It's
the floor. It's a higher floor. Every cycle has a higher floor.
Well, not just a higher floor, but the time for the market to correct is consolidated down intensely.
It's healthy because it gets overheated to an unhealthy level. Mm-hmm. So whenever David's talking about gold parity, I don't know if Bitcoin's ready for gold parity right now or not. It'll get to that level of being overheated, and it needs to correct. We need to flush out the system. It's healthy.
So talk about your management company. So what is it? How does it work with Bitcoin?
We're focused on the 4-year Bitcoin macro cycle. It comes in kind of 4 different stages. Right now, we're in the stage of people need to get fully deployed, whatever position you want to have allocated in. We switched to a market neutral position at the top and go for more of a cash yield over an 18-month period. But it's all macro stuff. We don't do day trading. Anything that we do outside of Bitcoin, the media business gives us a lot of insight and different opportunities that we wouldn't see otherwise. And the relationships that we have owning the largest Bitcoin conference in the world leads to those opportunities. If we do stuff outside of Bitcoin, it's always to gain yield on top of Bitcoin. But the two of us, like, one of the things I love about my job the most is that we get to educate people, start from like square one to making their first Bitcoin investment. That's what we're good at. We're good at onboarding people into the system, and we have enough battle scars that we're really confident that we can beat Bitcoin over a 4-year cycle. So we're trying to learn from our mistakes that we've had in the past.
We call it like the Bitcoin fund for your mom, because like literally we have family members that have been tracking this, and they want to get exposure to Bitcoin. They do it very passively, and if you don't want to invest the time and energy in order to do it the right way, you can make pretty big mistakes. And so we created kind of what I'm going to say is really a conservative portfolio within a high growth, high risk, area. I don't really see it as high risk, but other people would see Bitcoin as high risk. And, we're trying to just marginally outperform Bitcoin. We're trying to follow all the best practices, make sure we keep your Bitcoin secure, best security practices, best tax optimization practices, and then a tiny outperformance of Bitcoin on top of it to basically pay for our own fee. And it's
We're investing your capital like we would our own.
and we've done well. We have roughly 50 million AUM right now.
What's AUM?
Assets under management.
Okay.
And our returns.
72 LPs, and yeah, we're doing.
What
well.
have we done since inception?
I don't want to misquote quote numbers and
Yeah,
throw them out there.
getting
but
back to regulation, you
We
say
have
the wrong number.
happy LPs.
We made people a lot of money.
Yeah.
That sounds like, when did the fund start?
Yeah, September 2019.
September 2019. Okay, so somebody wants to invest Bitcoin with you. What's the advantage of them investing with you rather than just buying some Bitcoin?
There are a lot. There can be advantages. There can also be drawdowns. So we're pretty open with investors about that.
Mm-hmm.
We're working with really high net worth individuals due to regulations.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do that. We have to go after accredited investors and qualified investors. The majority of people that we're working with have a $50 million to $250 million net worth. They're individuals. One of the key benefits with our fund over just buying Bitcoin, the majority of our investors are trusts or retirement accounts or LLCs. It's incredibly easy to get access to Bitcoin as an individual. Go open a Coinbase account, a Kraken account, a Gemini account. Those are great avenues for the individual to acquire Bitcoin. We allow easier access for trusts and retirement accounts and LLCs to get involvement. And we're kind of like a Bitcoin financial advisor. We have stronger hands. People that get involved in Bitcoin themselves, they'll trade. They'll go off into other assets that they don't understand. They may make a lot of money.
They'll get up 20%. They want to sell right away.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So we're kind of the strong hands onboarding them into the system. A lot of our investors, they do part of their investment strategy. We help form their investment strategy with us, but we guide them on their investment strategy outside of us as well, making introductions and making sure that they're keeping their investments safe outside of what they're doing with us in the space.
Also, the market is very inefficient right now, and so
opportunity is
especially
endless.
right now, there are plays that probably will not exist for a long time where you can make extra returns. So, like for example, we have this one trade that has worked really well for us. Probably won't last too much longer.
We've gotten it's no leverage, held in cold storage. The assets are insured, and we've gotten a 40% annualized yield on top of Bitcoin performance.
So we'll tell the audience just so that they can do this themselves if they get. I think the minimum
Qualified investors though.
They have to be qualified.
So that's regulation.
10 million or plus net worth to be a qualified investor.
Well, so someone like me who's a qualified investor, what would you tell me?
Okay, so like there's a great GBTC, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. You ticker GBTC if you want to go check it out on your brokerage account. It's like a quasi ETF, but because the SEC won't approve an ETF, it has these weird mechanics. The trust basically holds Bitcoin in the trust, issues shares that take about 6 months for the shares to be tradable, exchangeable, and then those shares trade on the stock market. Because of dynamics that exist in the marketplace, those shares trade sometimes at a 30% premium over the value of the Bitcoin sitting in the trust. So our fund, because we're large enough, we do private placements into the trust. So we'll maybe send a $5 million check or $5 million worth of Bitcoin to the trust. They'll issue us shares at the valuation of like the spot value of Bitcoin. We have to wait 6 months, and then we take those shares and we sell them on the secondary on the stock market for 20% or 30% more. So they'll, if we put in 10 million in Bitcoin, we sell it on the secondary for $13 million. We get that cash, we put it right back into Bitcoin, and now we just turn one Bitcoin into 1.3 Bitcoin. So it's there are little things like that will only exist for so long, that because we do this all day, every day, we know all the games that people get to play, and we play them on behalf of our investors. But that's like one of those inside baseball things that you have to be like really, really plugged into,
right,
to know about and to execute on.
And then you got to be early into it, and then be early exiting it, because free arbitrage opportunities like that, they don't exist forever. And that's not a trade that will exist forever, but it has been a good one for us the last 12 months.
And so somebody wanting to invest with you, what is, like, if you're putting a plan together for somebody, how long is the plan? Like, do you sell during the winter? Is that
We're looking for people that realize that they need to have a certain percent of their assets, and for each individual, that percent can be different, invested into the space. We're the right people to do it, and we can talk to them why. And we're looking for them to be committed to the space for the long term, because these sort of opportunities, both in the summer, we call it right now summer, the exponential move year, and winter, there's opportunities in all markets. It's just those opportunities are different. But over a long-term time frame, and if you just go on Coinbase and you buy Bitcoin right now and you hold it for 10 years, I would be willing to bet a lot of money that it will be the best performing asset that you have. And you don't have to do anything. You just have to sit and hold it.
To answer your question directly, 1 year minimum lockup period. So you got to keep your money parked with us at least 1 year. That's try to get people not to think day to day, week to week on it. You know, we're not saying that we can time the market top exactly. What we think is that we can time the market top better than our investors can time it for themselves. And so if we can get out in the top quartile, if we can just retain 75% of your gains, we're happy. So we're just trying to keep you from avoiding that 75, 80% decline overall. So we're deploying it fully right now. You know, we're still figuring out exactly some of our benchmarks, but like when we get over $100,000 of Bitcoin, we're going to stop buying, and we're going to be like watching the market to see when to sell. When some of our indicators kick in about the market top having hit, we're going to be aggressive to exit, and then we're going to redeem all of our investors. And it's like, hey, here's your money. You know, we'll have a new fund in 4 years from now. When we holler, you know, be ready.
Oh, I was just about to say, like, so, you know, the next time I would probably want to give you guys some money.
We're trying to win the Super Bowl. So whenever the market crashes over that 18-month period and it bottoms, we can get the team back together again.
Yeah, makes sense.
And go for it.
Makes sense.
It's for your audience that's listening. It's not too late to deploy capital in this cycle.
Sure.
Under 100 opinion under 100K. So I've told people under 50K, which now we're at 48K, but under 50K, I'd say that's like the Goldilocks period. I'd be very surprised if we ever see it get back down below 50 once we kind of blow through this level. Below 100K, I think Bitcoin's a solid buy. Like, I think that we may never see those prices again, but we could. I think over 100K, solid yellow light. Like, you know, you need to be prepared that you might need to be holding for 4 years. And then once we get above, like, let's say 200, 250, red light. Like we're getting into the tail end of this thing, and you're going to end up, if you're not careful, losing a lot of money. And then once the market pops and we start seeing major declines, people need to, that's the time to start buying. No one wants to buy when things are going down, but that's the right time. So that's when you go set up your Coinbase account. You say, hey, I want to buy, you know, X amount of dollars every week. You just dollar cost average into your position, start building that little nest egg, and then ride up the next 100X wave 4 years later.
Yeah.
That is the path to retirement.
Yeah, that's some great advice. I mean, this last year I started doing the dollar cost average thing, and I mean, I'm pretty diversified in crypto right now. But I was even telling you with XRP, the reason I was going with XRP, not because I liked it, it's just that the government, you know, that was like the in with the government. So I'm just going to have a little bit of this that I did sell. But you think about the pops, and it just had to do with, I ended up having so much money in there that it actually, it's significant without even thinking about it. And so my two business partners, I mean, we always joke now with the customers, you know, we give a 10% discount for Bitcoin or Ethereum, and it's 10% extra for cash.
I like that. I like that. Yeah.
You see Scotty telling people on the phone that every time is crack up. Like that's the truth.
Best way to accumulate is to earn it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, what about some of these? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I also want to say, like, when people are trying to figure out what to invest into, it's really easy to get on, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with financial markets. You get on Coinbase, there's all these tokens that are trading, you know, they're different prices. You start looking at the chart. Some of them are up a lot. So, you know, like, and we hear, like one of the reasons people loved Dogecoin, which is I don't know if your audience knows what that is. It's
gotten way too many texts about Dogecoin in the last couple of weeks.
Isn't it painful every time you get a text?
People I haven't heard from in a long time.
So it's a coin about a meme. It has literally nothing behind it, basically, other than that the meme is cute. But people are like, oh, but it's a penny. Bitcoin's $10,000 or $50,000. Like, I want to buy the cheaper one that has more upside. That's not exactly how all this works. And so, I recommend to people, if you don't have a lot of familiarity, and to be honest, like, I don't even think I have enough familiarity to feel comfortable doing it. Bitcoin is it's like the index fund of them all. Like, no other crypto can become successful, like truly huge, without Bitcoin also doing well because of the dynamics of how the market works. But these other cryptos, some of them can go to zero and Bitcoin do really well. So, I recommend if you're just trying to get some exposure to like crypto as an asset class, put 90% plus of your exposure in Bitcoin, and think of the rest of what you're investing as like venture bets that you could lose 100% on. I've had several projects I've invested into I've lost 100% on.
And 90% exposure doesn't mean 90% of your USD net worth right away.
No, yeah. If you have 1% of your net worth,
start small.
Yeah. So it's a long game. It's a marathon. A lot of people start sprinting early in a marathon. It's a long game.
People really start sprinting at the peak, and that's where people get hurt. Bitcoin's going to stay volatile. These cycles are going to continue, boom and bust.
We call that FOMO. If you're missing out.
FOMO.
Major FOMO.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch. I mean,
FOMO's just starting now. We're starting to get the text flood in. We're starting to become cool again. Right.
You've always been cool. I mean, this is actually really cool talking about this stuff because, with your experience, even the Ethereum story. I mean, that's an incredible story. I love Ethereum as well, and telling these stories to where they can realize I'm learning. I feel like I know more than most about crypto, but not even close to the level of you're like the grandmasters. I'm like the I don't know, the brown belt, not quite a black belt yet, maybe a purple belt, working my way up. But most people are like basic noob white belts, walking in and don't know how to tie their belt, and they gotta learn this stuff.
I'll tell you one secret inside baseball thing. If you look at the founders of Ethereum, EOS, Cardano, VeChain, Ripple, Stellar, Litecoin. If you go look at the founders of those projects, what their portfolio looks like, 95% Bitcoin.
Really?
So I feel like, talk is cheap. I think it says more about what people invest into. And a lot of people look at altcoins as a way to get more Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So
it's like your gold. It's like your gold. I mean, like right now in the DeFi market, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's fun. What I love about it is the idea of reimagining finance without the government rules. And that's a beautiful thing.
And the mocking of Wall Street is
that's
the best part.
Well, okay, so we just got into an Ethereum-backed bond called Wise Token. I think you heard Matt talking about this. And the idea that we can make interest on this thing, and if we're doing the long play, like let's say we have, some of my stakes are 5 years, I believe in that. Now, when I learned about the cycles today, I'm like, okay, I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I got some stakes for like a year on that one too. Yeah. And then on the other side, on the DeFi, it's like, how do we reinvent health insurance? Mm-hmm. How do we reinvent some of these things, especially if it's Ethereum backed, mm-hmm. or if it's backed by something? It's an Ethereum backed bond, Wise mm-hmm. Token. I'm like, okay, how do we use that idea, which the guy basically took 45 million at the time worth of Ethereum that people had put it on Uniswap, burned the keys, completely decentralized, kept 2 million worth of Ethereum for starting the project. Completely decentralized.
It's pretty badass.
It's badass.
Do that. Yeah.
This dude's a bad dude. His name, Peter Gurr. So I interviewed him on the podcast, actually. But, I'm thinking, okay, So as it's got a price floor with the stakes, it's like 35-cent price floor. It's like, I don't know, it's been going down, but Ethereum's going up, so it's holding the price up. It's pretty cool to watch that happen. It's like being backed by gold, right? Well, I mean, Ethereum's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but that said, how do we use in the DeFi, which I think the DeFi has a lot of potential.
Right.
How do we use it to fix the health insurance problem, for instance? How do we do it to fix healthcare or to, there's a lot of possibility. I understand it's altcoins and speculative and we believe in Bitcoin as our digital gold.
Right.
But just because there's gold doesn't mean there's not other ways to make money.
Totally. No, I mean, it's like if this is the internet, Bitcoin is the internet. The .com bubble was all about all the companies building the internet. These DeFi tokens are like the stocks in this .com bubble. A lot of them are going to fail. Most of them are going to fail. Some of them are going to become Amazons. So it's hard to know which ones are going to be. You have to watch the projects develop and their communities and the teams behind them and, how good is the idea. So like that's kind of the cool stuff about all of it's transparent. You get to watch to see how they develop in time. I think the DeFi stuff, I've been tinkering in it. It's fun. And there's nothing better than taking a really high gluten finance term that hedge fund guys are all, uppity about and, calling your token sushi and calling your other token, kimchi. And if you, cross a sushi with the kimchi, you get spicy tuna sushi. And it's like, yes, this is what finance needed. Like it needed to be taken down a peg and it needed to be like made for the people. It's the people's money.
That's what DeFi. I'm like, mind is blown in that world because as a creative person, I'm like, that's my thing. I'm creative. It's like imagining all the different possibilities that we can do with this. Like how, and I always go back to how do you change the world with it? Like when y'all are talking about the Bitcoin thing, it's like, how do we get this to the kids in the project? How, then they got to be an accredited investor. Like, how do we work around that? And these systems have the potential to actually change the world. I don't, not the potential. These systems will change the world, but it's going to take people like us to actually figure out where the need is to help as many people as possible become free.
Dude, the what makes DeFi so cool, and I also love the DeFi community. They call themselves Degens, stands for degenerates. They have the right mindset about it all. It's cool, but that's the beauty of a system that's open and permissionless, and anyone can come and build. Like, there are 17-year-olds that can't even legally have a credit card or a bank account that are building, that have created $100 million DeFi project. Mm-hmm. Like, we need entrepreneurs building financial services and financial products.
Right.
Not just Yale graduated, Ivy League, Bank 7 Series chartered, hedge fund dweebs that like we need creative inventors to come in and make things that are useful for society. And that's what Bitcoin promises. Just like the internet promised, you didn't have to own a newspaper to come and be able to say something online. Like anyone has the ability. If you have a good idea, you can go on the internet, you can start a blog, you can get your word out there. DeFi is doing that for money. Bitcoin's doing that for money. We like to say that Bitcoin's the original DeFi, but the DeFi on Ethereum is cool too.
Yeah, no, it is the original DeFi, straight up. Like, and for those that are listening, like, oh, what's DeFi? Decentralized finance. What Bitcoin is decentralized. What certain DeFi tokens are truly, not anymore decentralized than Bitcoin, but some of them
do different things. Like Bitcoin's decentralized value, but these other tokens are, interest-bearing accounts or coins that are tied to the stability of the dollar, but stable pegged to a dollar. Or cool. All sorts of cool stuff. Literally, there's thousands of projects, and there's new projects being launched every day, and it's just like a waterfall of new stuff happening because there's so much innovation occurring.
Yeah, and that is the future. When people say, "Oh, what is the future?" Well, it is crypto, right? That is how we're going to be, doing things in the future. I think that one thought is, though, how do we keep the government from coming and regulating it away?
if we have to do something to stop them, we're doomed. It's that there's nothing that they can do.
Yeah.
If they could do it, they already would have done it. When Libra and Facebook tried to launch Libra, like that project was shut down in 7 days because there was a company you could subpoena. Zuckerberg was called in front of Congress. But with Bitcoin, where are you sending that letter to? Who are you calling? No one can help you. So it's like that's the power. That's the decentralized power. Maybe this is a good kind of note to conclude on. But if you look at the internet, from the start of humanity, when we were like people in caves doing cave paintings, to the start of the internet, every cave painting, every drawing, every handwritten letter, every book, every thought basically that humans had that they had communicated in some shape or form up until that point in time is now created on the internet every second. That's the power of a system that is open, that is permissionless, that is frictionless. Like every second we create more information than all of human history beforehand. That's what's going to happen with Bitcoin. All value that's been created since the dawn of humanity in 20, 30 years' time will be the amount of value that's created in a second. So this world is just beginning. This is the very, very start of something that's going to be much bigger than we can possibly imagine. And it is open and available for anyone listening to this podcast to go and be a part of right now. There's nothing stopping you from getting a Coinbase account right now and being a part of it. And so, there's no better time than now to plant a tree.
Wow. Now is the time. Now is the time. I feel like that was like in the movie 300 where he's going like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Life is only going to get better, but change is ahead, a lot of change. And if you are not in this system, if you're in the inflationary system of the dollar, 40% of all USD printed in the last year, you need protection. To not have protection against that is irresponsible at this point. With an asset that's been around for 12 years, whether it's Bitcoin or other assets that are good stores of value and hedges against inflation, you need to protect yourself. Well, that's something I would encourage everybody to look into. And with Bitcoin, you could do it with $100. You don't have to dive all in.
Math-based money.
Inflation versus deflation. That simplifies that whole thing. So, David, Coyn, thanks so much for coming on today. It's been a fun conversation, and I'd love to do it again sometime as this thing's going.
Love to. Bitcoin Magazine HQ'd here in Nashville. We love Nashville. We want to turn Nashville into a mecca for freedom. And anytime you want to talk, we're always available.
Check out the Bitcoin conference, Bitcoin 2021 in Miami on June
4th and 5th. And if you're a potential whale, if you're sitting on a huge portfolio of stocks and bonds, and you want to get some diversification from political money, UTXO Management, UTXO.management is a site to check out if you want to get in touch with us and
there's some great resources on that site as well, just that are good reading material for people.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on here, and I think that people listening, they can hear your passion. What's most important is you believe it. Whether it's, you never know what can happen, but you believe it. You're all in, and I think people can, they want to be a part of something that somebody believes in, and that's what you guys are providing. So, I'm gonna throw some money your way here in the next few years too. So,
cool. Well, thank you for having us on.
All right, thanks, guys. Peace.